Start in about 30 seconds. Can you all hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Excellent. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Shannon Gascoigne. I'm an Amherst resident, serving as a community representative and chair of the SAU 39 Joint Facilities Advisory Committee. The committee is composed of a number of community volunteers like myself, along with elected public officials, a liaison from the Board of Selectmen, and SAU 39 leadership. Each member serves a variety of subcommittees, bringing valuable perspectives, questions, and considerations to the table. A little quick bit of history: the Joint Facilities Advisory Committee, or JFAC as we call it, was originally appointed by the SAU board in late 2018. In charge of analyzing and providing recommendations regarding the state of our public school buildings in SAU 39, specifically Amherst. K through 8 enrollments were swelling to a degree that the district was exploring sending Amherst kindergarten students to Mount Vernon. We had a 15-year-old portable out back here at Wilkins out of commission due to a fire, displacing 2 classrooms worth of children. Guidance counselors were using closets for office space and calming rooms. Severe temperature swings in all of our buildings, K through 12. Leaky roofs with trash barrels collecting water throughout the middle school. And a voter-supported architectural and engineering study underway at Talladega High School to plan for the next 20 years in that building. So the FAU board recognized the need for a comprehensive plan for the aging buildings of the Amherst district and the need to also align those plans with the work that could result from the design phase taking place at the high school. The JFAC was asked to offer recommendations regarding the needs, priorities, and sequencing of the work. Encompassed in our charge are Clark Wilkins Elementary School, which was constructed in 1967, this building here Wilkins was. Amherst Middle School, which is 1972, and Southfield High School. We have recommended that the elementary school and middle school present the largest and most pressing needs, followed by several smaller projects at the high school, some of which are currently underway, utilizing funds in the existing operating budget. We're here this evening to discuss the recommendations for the elementary and we're joined this evening by representatives from Banwell Architects, Ingrid Nichols, Brad Prescott, and Jeremiah Lay. And they will walk us through the current draft conceptuals. And from the construction management firm of DPW Construction, we have Kristen Wells, Matt Eaton, and Dan Riley. Who will take us through our current estimate of cost. I will ask Superintendent Steele to co-host the evening with me, and I will be asking members of the JFAC along with SAU 39 Director of Facilities Roger Preston to chime in as well. We'll begin with the information portion of the evening, followed by a Q&A and discussion period. So as a committee filled with community representatives, we've worked really hard over the last several years to offer a balanced perspective and thoughts on what we need in our schools and align the plans that you will see tonight with the feedback that we have received from the community when we surveyed in 2020. Speaking as the chair of the committee, we really want to get this right. We want to meet the needs of not only our school children, but our town. These are your buildings. Your buildings for educating your children, holding events and recreational programming, chili cook-offs, and custom meetings. So tonight is really all about informing you all on our process and where we are, and hearing from you, our neighbors and fellow residents. What are your priorities for our schools? What would you like us to consider? This is just a brief timeline. We started working in 2020. Following a successful budget passing to do an existing conditions analysis on all the buildings, programming, visioning, master planning. Go forward again. Thanks. And this is where we are today. So we have our architect on board, our construction manager, our site civil engineer. We have initial design selected, which are here for you to view tonight, and our initial estimate of cost. And again, thank you all for joining us this evening at our first public forum. So as the Joint Facilities Advisory Committee, when looking at the existing conditions at all of our schools, made a recommendation to the boards that was accepted, and then we instructed our architects to work on a plan that moves us from our current setup at our schools. So you'll see that right now our elementary school is in 2 different buildings. And those buildings house grades preschool through 4th, with our 5th through 8th grade at the middle school. In our proposed plan, we'll be consolidating our elementary school into one school that will house pre-K to 5. Excuse me, there's a live. So bringing the 5th grade back to the elementary school where it is most developmentally appropriate, and renovating the middle school for grades 6 to 8. So with that, I would like to turn the mic over to Ms. Ingrid Nichols from Banwell Architects to get us started with the conceptual walkthrough. I'll ask that you hold your questions until the end of the information session, at which time Superintendent Steele will take over the question and answer portion of the night.
Great, thank you, Shannon. So again, just to reiterate, tonight is a point in time. These are just designs, conceptual designs that we have to date. Tonight is really for us to present quickly what we have and what we've all been working hard on and diligently studying to get your input and to get your questions so that we can try to analyze those and solve those before the bond.
Would you like to speak into the mic?
So first and foremost, we would like to invite you guys to actually take tours of the schools. These are just some existing conditions photos to show the conditions that the teachers, staff, and students are living in. So obviously it's crowded. We have some issues with spaces that are in toilet rooms, not enough storage, cramped quarters, portables, an ancient mechanical and electrical system here and at Clark's building. Again, the portables. There also is a compromised system, mechanical system with the ventilation, where the upper right-hand photo shows there's ventilation right into the corridor from the classrooms, which is a code violation. We did a thorough analysis when we first were hired to really analyze the true needs of your school, and we met with the faculty and staff and administration, and we listened to their needs. We also looked at the state New Hampshire Department of Education needs and developed what we call a foundational program that guides us to be able to do the actual designs. So that's what these documents, and I'm sure they'll, if they aren't already, they'll be on your website. Jeremiah's going to walk us through the Clark Watkins building, which we're currently in.
Hey, everyone. This is a preliminary site plan that was developed by a civil engineering group, Time Bond, that we work with. I'll start out by saying that we went through several different design configurations of where buildings go on the site. And it's made on this one for now. You can see the outline of where the proposed building is in orange. And you can kind of faintly see where the existing building is underneath. We're kind of currently standing right here in this multi-purpose room. So go back just want to orient everybody to the overall site. You can see the building sited here. Here's Boston Post Road, Jones Road here. So some of the ideas that we've been developing involve expanding the parking. There's some current situations that we're trying to address as far as backup or pickup and drop off, alleviating that issue. So we expanded the parking count. You can see 125 parking spaces out there in front, as well as some supplemental 20 spaces here. And we're also looking at incorporating a drive around the building to help with pickup and drop off. Also, what you'll notice here is a potential access drive along Jones Road, which may be part of the project. Looking into that, I think it may be a requirement for the New Hampshire Department of Education and Fire Safety to have multiple site access points. With this design, we maintain the upper playing fields as well as the field behind the school. So it's keeping it relatively in the same location it is now. This dash line represents a buffer from the existing wetland. This is the south side of the building, so north is up here. So we've been cognizant of staying away from the wetland 100-foot buffer with the building. We believe we'll be able to encroach on that buffer with drives. You can see proposed playground areas on the south side, as well as a nature play area that will remain to be used similar to how it is now on the south side. And here's just a blown out view of that, so you get a better view of the main entrance currently located where it is now. Here's a conceptual diagram of the floor plan. You can see they're color coded here. The blue spaces are classroom spaces. The orange is administration. The yellow is core functions such as the gym and media center. The dark green is a specialized instruction, art, music, and the light green is special instruction spaces. So the concept with this initial floor plan, this is the first floor. We have 2 floors to show you. One of the reasons that we settled on this plan as opposed to others we studied is because we really want to be careful about the scale of this building, how it fit in, making it feel not too large. I really wanted to stay with a 2-story structure instead of a 3-story structure, which was really achieving with this layout. And also, as I mentioned, breaking down the scale. The front portion of the building is a 1-story piece, and the back is 2-story. So where we're standing right now is the multi-purpose room. One of the key components of this idea is to maintain, to keep this multi-purpose room, as well as to expand and improve the kitchen area on this side. We feel, and the staff really felt that this space has a lot of value and history that can help not only our budget, but we can retain that as a positive part of the program. So one thing that we're trying to improve on this is to flip the administration to the front to have a secure entry for administration and nurse, as well as the media center to be kind of the public front space. We have the spaces that don't necessarily need the natural light in the center, such as the gym. We have an adult gym with bleachers in the center and support spaces. These are services and the creative areas for music and art, strategically located at the back side of the stage. Also, one thing that we've incorporated in this design is a courtyard. So this is exterior space. It will allow natural light down to the center of the building. And with this layout, we feel that it works well in terms of solar orientation, a lot of south-facing classrooms. Also have some north-facing classrooms, but having the building oriented on this east-west axis is good for solar orientation. Also, some special ed space that come into the courtyard, as well as some classroom spaces. You can see the preschool space and then kindergarten and first grade are located on this floor. The upper floor would contain 2nd through 4th grade, 5th grade. Large portion. Going to the 2nd floor, here you can see the 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, located around the perimeter. This is an open below 2-story space, and again, the scale of that will be broken up by this 1-story section in the front. So special ed space, some administration support spaces in the center, teachers' room, remote satellite nurses station, and you can see our stairwells here in gray.
Okay. I am Brent Prescott. Thanks for coming. I did a lot of research with the team regarding middle school, understand your existing condition, go through your stakeholders as well as your school leadership. And I was reminded very recently by my wife and my son how much I love pie. In the autumn, we're all enjoying some pumpkin pie, apple pie. But what we don't like pie is the shape of our classrooms, which is what we're going to have right now at the middle school. There's a lot of inefficiencies that come with it. It seemed like a really cool new idea 50 years ago, maybe 72, when they did the original build. But there's a lot of inefficiencies that come along with that. So these are just some of the existing conditions that go along with that. We have some. The casework is 50 years old. It's at the end of its life. So that's all your cabinetry and so forth. That's the free classroom. We have some life safety issues with guardrails that are sort of an old standard and not quite safe as it really should be. And the code, we're using the hallways for workspaces and storage, which is not good compliant and not very efficient. And we have some, worn out finishes where the epoxy floors and so forth, they're just wearing out. I mean, this building has had a lot of use. It's been, I think your facilities team has done a tremendous job with their schools and trying to but they're old. So just like in the elementary school, we did a very detailed educational specification for your program, and we compared last year's master plan along with it, as well as the variance of this year in the program and what's going to work and how that might comply with Department of Education regulations, making sure we did that. This is just an orientation site plan. I'm very familiar with the school, so I'll go quickly. We've got road right out front here with bus access, outdoor classrooms across from the bus access, parking in here, which is very tight. Your main entrance is kind of tucked in here, and then your 1972 wings here, and then your 2001. So real quick, this is your existing plan. So you can see those wonderful pie-shaped classrooms, which are so wonderfully efficient. And you've got your 2001 wing, which has both your music classrooms on the first and second floor, as well as your science rooms and science room. So one of the things that teachers really felt strongly about was that they really wanted their teaching teams to be together. So they have your two humanities classrooms as well as your math class and your science class all together in one pod, so they can teach as a team rather than separated around school. It's right now they come here, here, and here. We have a sort of an old style workshop in the back here. Really not supporting project-based learning curriculum for this configuration. And this is support the same. We've got some special education on the upper floor, which really is bigger for the 21st century modern special education curriculum. So what we did here was try to look at the existing building and how can we fit the needs for a 6th grade through 8th grade curriculum, project-based curriculum, in the configuration that was really going to work for your students. Part of that was to take the noisy music program classrooms, which are disturbing the science classes when they're in session. That sound is transmitted right through the structure. And going into these classrooms up here, and we're able to reposition them closer to the stage and performance area, and put them with the creative arts in all one wing, along with an innovation lab, arts classrooms, both here and here, and computer design classrooms. So you've got art, creative arts, computer design, of their designs, and fabrication of their designs all in one area. Nice high ceilings for both music and engineering and art, which would be very advantageous. There's not a lot of changes to the cafeteria, to the gymnasium, which was recently redone. We tried as much as possible to minimize the structure as part of this. So we did kind of a deep dive. It's like, okay, where's the columns? We don't want to leave those around. In addition, this 20-year-old wing, which is our most recent wing, has minimal disruption. But the rest of the building, what we tried to do here was square off what we call pods. So we have 6 different teaching pods, 2 for each grade. Again, with the science, math, and humanities, with flexible walls for humanities, so they can open up one wall, so they can combine classes. This takes away all of the 50-year-old foldable acoustic walls, which are very acoustically sealed. So one class right now, here with the other classes do it all the time. 100 foldable walls doesn't do that. That's test tube recent project he helped. We also have a learning commons in the center of the building, which is your current library, and we've reconfigured this to support a project-based learning curriculum where the students are learning their different So upstairs is very much like down. We have in the green here, we see the special education. We moved family consumer science up into this area. This works out very well for them. It's a bigger room. It's a more regular shape, actually better for fat arts as well as for culinary arts. What do you say? This is who we control.
Hi, everybody, I'm Matt with DEW Construction. So I want to start tonight by sort of explaining what we have here. The history, I cannot speak to the very first column. This is LDA initial estimate that was done prior to DEW. Roger can talk to it in a second. But what we have here essentially is Little Valley, Brent Zanger, architect, and the construction manager at that time. They put together a concept for the district. It was estimated to be approximately $66 million. The district went out for a construction management RFP 2 months ago. They wisely selected DEW Construction. But during that first, during the interview process, they asked all construction managers to put together a particular cost based on what they had at that time, and without any ability to ask questions or communicate with the district about the needs and wants of staff and facilities. So DEW estimate number 1 was really done blind, so to speak, and during the initial phase. DEW estimate number 2 happened after we had a lot of feedback from the JFAC committee, tours to facilities that were all day, lots of questions, and additional feedback from Banwell with written narratives about exactly sort of what we wanted. And then the SAU opinion of cost column, all the way to your right, was a collaborative effort. Once we put everything on paper and we showed them what they asked for, there was a lot of back and forth. And we actually realized in that process that there were a couple of items that were double counted. An example may be window treatments. I had it in my budget, they had it in their budget. So we deleted it from one. So there was no counting. So how we started really was DEW used hundreds of our projects. So it's a historical database. There's not a lot drawn right now. So we used the conceptual plans that were there, the hundreds of projects that we have, 35 specifically with Banwell, so we sort of understand how they draw and what they design and how they design. With some additional clarity on understanding that durability was a priority. Quality products to protect the investment, the community's investment was a priority. High efficiency products and low maintenance types of products. For example, for that we're standing on here, we have to seal it, or strip it, seal it, wax it every year. So paying attention to the products that we use. And then we utilize Banwell very smartly. There's an example of the middle school plan up there. Utilizing the existing structure where possible. Don't tear it down and reuse it. So they use the buildings, the forms, the shapes, specifically in the middle school, different areas of the elementary school. But to the extent possible, use it. Don't throw it away. And then also to have the least amount of disruption to your students. So that was another priority that we looked at. So included in our numbers is a lot of those slides here. Included in our numbers are contingencies. Contingencies are what we don't know. It's money for what we don't know today. So there's a lot of contingencies, a lot we don't know. So in the numbers that you see here today are contingencies. If we don't use them or need them, we don't spend them. So it's not like it's our money to go back to the taxpayers. The contingencies are used for things such as design that's not on paper yet, escalation, inflation, what might happen in the future with commodities, it's just speculation. We track data that's published and measured to understand how year after year, over 30 years, how inflation works. So we can put our best guess at the numbers. So we try to put as much science behind the numbers as possible. And so what we have here is the middle school renovation. Again, in the same format with the 4 columns. I think we really should focus on maybe the SAU unit cost all the way to the right, where we have a base plan at 26.2 million, and then the lines below it, HVAC upgrades, solar, photovoltaic, the addition, site plan, were all add alternates, and that's where the committee and the board have sort of get to that point where they elected to take certain ones and include them in the base of value, and keeping the solar in both schools as a separate plot, which we'll describe a little more. Also, to point out, these numbers are inclusive of construction. This is not just what DPW needs to build the building. This is what the project needs to construct the building. Includes the owner's soft costs, which are legal fees, bond costs, furniture, design and engineering, etc. So it's the complete package to build a project.
The all rate.
That's correct. In all contingencies.
So 26.2.
That is correct. Not sure about this one, right? I did. Okay. Well, anyways, if I did real quick, this is the same. This is the same format. I don't think it- Or maybe I skipped it. But this is the same format where we have the base, Clark Wilkins base school, 51 million. The improved or the upgraded HVAC system, which will get you about 20 to 25% more efficient systems in place. And then the solar photovoltaic array that will be call it roughly 1/3 of the roof area. For a total provided 55 sweat all. Just talked about that one. This one is what was recommended by the JFAC committee to the school board, where Clark Wilkins was 53.5 million, middle school was 31.5 million. It included essentially everything you saw on the list, both lists, with the exception of the solar. That was the one item that was pulled out. And the board then the committee presented or offered the board a value of 83 million. I think that was the structure, 83 million flat, and with the add alternate as it's described here that they still need to do a little more research on. But the add alternate to possibly a second line for adding the solar.
A little bit on what Matt just said about the solar add alternate. The committee felt like that solar was definitely something they wanted to keep on the table, continue to explore it. But when we were looking at the needs of the project, what do we need to make projects happen versus what are the desires of the community? It was the feeling of the committee and the recommendation at the time that perhaps solar would be something that we should be discussing as a community. If that's something that could be a separate project. So, that, which part is this? There we go. Okay. So before we get to the next steps, we'll take a pause for questions and answers and discussion. Yes, I'm agree.
Regarding the solar option, the solar energy option. Different shelf life, I was curious about that shelf life. in this case.
Sorry, so
Madam Chair, could you have the person state the name, please,
Oh, sure.
for the record, please?
Yeah.
so I was turning the mic so we can maybe.
So my name is Paul Prescott. I'm children of Brad Prescott's brother. You know, the older part.
I can see that.
So anyway, my question has to do with, if the town votes on the solar option, my curiosity was that, what is our ROI on that solar option? And what is the, you know, the shelf life, the expected shelf life?
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask our architects to speak to that, but that's one reason why the committee wrote it out as a separate option.
Yeah.
Because of the concern about all of it. So, Ingrid or Pat?
So again, we are still studying this and looking at all the different options, but it's typically a 15-year plus or minus. But there are other options depending upon what materials you choose, where they're located, et cetera. But this is our first public hearing or forum, and we'll have others with more, but we'll take that question down and get back more information.
So Ingrid, to be clear, are you saying a 15-year ROI or 15-year life cycle?
Lex.
One of the benefits to consider about solar, which we explore, plenty of different costs of designing the structure to house it, the cost to purchase it. There's also the cost to use electricity bill, electric rates are going up significantly. So there's a lot of things we need to explore about what's the right parameters, not just 2021, but 2050, 20 to plan forward so that we're prepared to have these types of products. That's the way we're moving. Give us the flexibility to prepare for those changes. Look, in this case, we didn't have enough fact evidence to say it's going to cost X. You're going to get a return on Y. It's going to take you X amount of time to get there. We don't have that information yet, so we need to get that to potentially the voters. Which is why we hold off as a separate ballot warrant article, so the town can choose to have that if that's what the town wants. But the base project is effectively what we determined was necessary for what we've researched thus far, and solar was definitely nice to have. Many people may want that, but it's something that we can use that the town.
Other questions? Mr. Luke, you can identify yourself more than I just did.
Yeah, hi, Will Luke, School Street neighbors. I have two questions. With the core building of Park Wilkins here, how many students will it hold? And what I'm concerned about is what's the plus up that could hold? Because I think really if the school is built, they will come, meaning more people I think will come to campus. So I'm just, curious about what's that delta between the core student population and what it could hold without getting into
We don't have a chance again, I would say.
So that's one of my first question.
Sure. So one of the design elements that we made sure was incorporated was expandability of the building for classroom space, while making sure that the core of the building, the core facility, the bathrooms, the library, the cafeteria was already built for a larger size. So the core facility is going to be built for just under 1,100 students. But the classroom capacity of the building when it opens will be just under 900, about 889.
And then my last question is sort of tangential to what we're talking about tonight, but has there been any decisions or any movement on what we're going to do, or because that's, from a community perspective, that's pretty key.
Indeed. So there was part of the JFAC work over the past 2 years was they had a subcommittee just for looking at potential uses for Clark. And while there are still some unanswered questions, that has been explored and several options have been considered. None of which have risen to the top as being a preferred option just yet.
Now, assume like that, if this will be decided before we go into, budget, cities within, representing this project.
Yeah, so Victoria Parisi chaired the Clark subcommittee, so Ms. Parisi, if you'd like to respond to that.
Yeah.
Could you turn to the mic for the benefits of the people?
Okay, so Mr. Luke has attended some of the Clark committee. We had it on Zoom, this was earlier during the COVID pandemic. While we're gathering information from the community to try to figure out what we're going to do, as Superintendent Steele said, we know that we're going to need this space for flex space during construction. So even if or when this gets approved, the time after that will be still in use. So we're really looking at ideally a 3 to 5 year turnaround. At this point, the JFAC group has really thought it was inappropriate to choose specifically what will happen with the building prior to it going on the ballot this year, because we would be making a decision and probably unable to lock into a decision that might need to change in 5 years. So that's why we've done the footwork early on, continuing the conversation, making sure that the conversation is open with all residents of town, including those neighbors of Clark School, but also just realizing that we're not going to be in a position, in all reality, the board or JFAC will not be in a position to tell anyone a specific answer to be held for the next 5 years.
Next.
Yes, sir. You could identify yourself.
Mr. Carter. I wanted to ask questions about some design elements that might be used to minimize future taxpayer costs. One is the solar energy. I'm not happy to see that there. One thing that we used to know is how many solar panels are installed, energy demands in the school. How much would the solar panels, electric costs per year? I know a number of people install solar on their houses, and their electric costs are spiked more than 50, close to 100%. And that's possible here. One other possibility that might be considered geothermal, could put some pipes underneath the athletic field. The temperature of the ground is New Hampshire 45 degrees, 50 degrees year round. So the temperature in school is 10 degrees, 45 degree or increase to 45 degrees to help to reduce the heating costs on the way. And likewise, in the other parts of the year when it's warmer, those 45 to 50 degree temperatures will cool. So here's some percent of geothermal piping can help to reduce overheating costs. Let's see, the other is passive solar. I don't know if any of the benefits aside from the protection of forests. It's got big water columns there. The building is designed with appropriate south facing windows, roof just the right angle, so that the light from the sun hits those water columns. Winter helps to keep the building warm all evening long, all night long. And then the next day, the sun again hits them and helps to keep the building. It's passive, so all you have to do is build it. There's pretty much no cost. So that can help to reduce expenses. If you want to design something like that. Let's see. The other thing, I've spoken with Andrea, she says that solar, geothermal, passive solar. So that's something that probably ought to be looked into. Reduce the cost of construction, and then add benefit, reduce costs to building for the next 30 years of our life. Just some questions and thoughts.
Sure, thank you. I'll address some of them and have our experts as well. As an overview, building a school in a town like Amherst is striking a balance between initial costs and total cost of ownership over time, especially around energy efficiency projects. So this committee looked specifically at a number of things, some of which have been now incorporated into the base costs. Solar, which has been separated out as a separate item to be considered on its own potentially, and then geothermal, which has not been seriously considered thus far. And the reason for that is trying to strike a balance between what we think the voters of Amherst will support, and without going too far down the road of high initial upfront costs, things that have a large, a long return on investment. So our architect and construction manager had advised us that in New Hampshire, they've not found a geothermal project in the school that's been cost effective. Just confirm that was the advice we received. And so we did not seriously consider it because if it's not cost effective, our voters are not likely to want to support that. We have included solar, as you mentioned. Passive solar, we've not considered. We can certainly add that to our list of things that we can investigate. I've seen it used, I believe, at Sanborn High School as well as a similar system, although I think it's an air-based system, not a water pump-based system. But that's something we can certainly consider as well. Thank you. Ms. Dodd.
My name is Dawn. I'm from Longmont, and I want to know how this thing backs.
Thank you, Ms. Dodd. So the one impact for Mount Vernon taxpayers would be as it affects the tuition agreement between the Mount Vernon School District and the Amherst School District for the Mount Vernon 7th and 8th grade students that attend Amherst Middle School. The tuition agreement includes a proportional formula for calculating the cost of capital costs. It's done on a per student basis. So for the roughly 40 or 50 students from Mount Vernon who attend Amherst Middle School, they would pay a proportional share of the cost of capital costs each year. It's calculated each year based on the number of students each year, offset by the bond payment, as I recall. So it's paid on a proportional basis. That, to my knowledge, is the only direct impact on taxpayers. But the formula number,
Yeah, but it's only for the middle school part.
only for the middle school project, not for the elementary project.
So the word on the street is that we will pay $7 million for this addition, and we don't own any portion of the building. So I think that's discussed on the committee. But it's a very large concern.
We've not calculated, or at least I have not calculated that cost yet, so the word on the street may or may not be right. We can look into that and get an estimate for future meetings. The proportional cost would increase if the Amherst 5th graders are no longer at the Amherst Middle School. Right. So that's certainly an impact. It should also be noted that as a result of that potential impact on Mount Vernon taxpayers, the Mount Vernon School Board has established a committee to investigate the long-term options for the 7th and 8th grade students from Mount Vernon. In addition, they only signed an intention negotiated only a 5-year tuition agreement instead of the typical 10-year tuition agreement to give the voters of Mount Vernon a potential offering should they choose not to support further litigation at the Amherst School. Good question. Ms. Bean, is it?
Terry Bean Amherst. I was wondering, the space that you talked about being able to expand it to, how would that get used until we get for classrooms?
Thank you, great question. So that space would not be used at all because it would be constructed. So it would be, it would not be constructed until the year. Several other schools in the area have similar designs. Elementary schools, for example, where they built the core and then up their wings to be able to be expanded along when necessary. So it's a pretty common design element for schools to build a core a little larger than needed initially, in the event that if they build it, they will come to the circular. Yes, sir.
I'm really supportive of solar, and I'm curious, I feel like a 15-year lifespan sounds short. I understand these issues are longer than that. And I'm just curious who solar companies you guys are talking to some of them. Not working with, get more information.
As a school district, we have not spoken with any solar companies. We know that there's a benefit to doing that because the tax rebates mean nothing to us, but mean everything to them. So when the time comes, we will certainly do that. At this point, we've not. And we can verify all our stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have estimates for what would be the operating costs to the budget based on, improvements that are included in the base project, not the solar side? So, if HVAC and other things of that nature, if there are base estimates that obviously change.
The answer is no. One of the things we'll do is have some estimate of that, as well as there is some minor cost savings by consolidating two schools in one. So not operating the Park School independently has some, not as much as people might think, but there are some balances.
We're trying to figure out how to utilize the total capital bill, now utilize the tax. So they talk about slugging right flooring, looking at HVAC systems, upgrade the system to be more energy efficient, which then kicks in the ability to get capital asset rebates, looking at reduced operating expenses for the facility. So we try to take in, they're always back looking at solar, trying to figure out how do we make not only the best investment today, but how do we make the cost of operating this facility for the next 30, 50, 90 years the best solution for the residents, for the community, for our environment, try to most active. We're also looking at a very unique period in the interest rate market. And it's cheap cash right now. So if there's an opportunity to potentially spend a little bit more upfront, I'm not trying to spend people's money. But if it gets you a return, maybe it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I'm not sure what those returns are. We're trying to figure out what those calculations are. What's the right thing to do in 2021? How do we keep affecting it in a positive way?
Yes, sir.
I live on Jones Road and Old Ghost Lane right over here. This kid over here, Brad Wilkins, lives across the street from me. We're concerned about the traffic. What is going to be done about the traffic? Bad enough already. I like that speed bump when I Jones Road. What is the traffic? It's terrible.
In fact, Brad Wilkins, like I said, city tax, because to come through here at, what is it, 80/30, not a lot of people use bus system, a lot of parents drop their kids off still. So they tend to fly through Jones Road, to then cut off. Plus, with the possible addition of buildings on Boston Road and Boston Post Road, just kind of the juggernaut of traffic coming down is one of those things that I think needs to at least be discussed, and just kind of, this is what this is for, right? This is the part to find out those things, ask those questions. So, well, have we figured out traffic route things, just how to drop offs, all that stuff? If you drive through, you see all the cars on the side of the road.
So, if you look at our conceptual site design, there is very little that's been developed in terms of the final site design. One of the steps in the process will likely be a traffic study. The the best thing that we can do in our design process is have an effective bus loop so that more and more parents want their kids to ride on a bus and not be dropped off. So one of the options we're exploring is can the Jones Road side of the site be used for either car or bus drop off or pickup to make the process go more smoothly, more quickly, and thus hopefully lead to less car traffic. It's too early in the process to say that. I think it's fair to say that the committee is very aware of the concerns about traffic as it affects Jones Road. And while there will always be school traffic, we are not moving the school. We do hope that our design helps ameliorate the somewhat. And the same at the middle school. One of the issues at the middle school, if I can fast forward to that, is we all know this site and how this parking plan simply does not work at all. So one of the things that the JFAC committee recommended and the board accepted was to include the site redesign costs in the cost of this project, even though technically we could do the AMS renovation without those site upgrades. And the reason why is a site that really doesn't work for neighbors, for parents, and it's not even the safest design given the amount of mixing of cars and students. So included in the cost is a redesign of this site to hopefully make the parking, site design, bus loop, car loop, all of that work in a more effective manner. We're not going to spend money ahead of the bond vote to do a conceptual design of what that might look like. We're simply going to commit to making sure it works for neighbors and for our students. Hope that helps. Prescott, you have something you want to-
Me, I guess I didn't understand where if we're keeping the traffic patterns the same. Then I didn't understand where we were indeed changing the traffic patterns. So it sounds like something that are considered.
Well, we considered it because number one, we're adding grade levels to the building, which means more traffic. And second, because we know it's an issue and that our Jones Road neighbors have made that clear to us, we think we owe it to the community, to the village, to make sure we can make it as efficient as possible while we're going through the construction project. We have to do paving, we have to do parking as part of it, so we might as well look at the traffic as well and see if we can improve it. No promises that we'll get much better, but we're hoping that. Please.
In the last couple of years, I don't think, in the last couple of years, the town of Amherst has also done studies and understood that the traffic coming through Boston Road is nearing its maximum. So we are, aware of that. So there are two sides working together.
Found on hearing it's not true about that.
So when we have heard about different developments going in north of Boston Post, so this way, that new Boston Road that everybody talks about, we know that that will bring added traffic. And there are big groups of town that have brought in individual traffic studies to figure out what that would look like. We know, as everybody does who drives past Wilkins in the morning, that Wilkins obviously adds to that traffic. We know that there are cars parked on either side of Boston Post Road at pickup and drop off. We, in the last 2 years, have changed around our routine here. Our administrators have seen that that's a problem, and they have now released the children in different waves, so that we're trying to alleviate it with what we have, which is what Amherst has always done. We've always tried to work with what we have, and we're at the point that we need to work with something new. So when we look at this sign, talking about the road that goes around, we're not talking about a single lane, we're talking about it wide enough to get as many cars off the road as we can. Does that answer a little bit more?
Yes, sir.
That road, is that a road going around the Jones Road?
Right here.
Yeah, that thing right there.
So this is a potential fire access road that we might have to put in for like safety code, but it will be gated right here and right there, and only accessible by fire, police, and emergency. So yes, but not really.
Now, I know they're talking about residential areas, they're talking about the Clearview. How many people are, how many houses are they talking about in Clearview?
I have no idea.
I think they're talking about 40 or 50. Up, so you're gonna get traffic on Washington Road, you get a lot of it on Boston Post. It's happening in front of the door.
Mr. Coogan?
So, as Victoria alluded to, some of the various different projects that are proposed in town, that there have been traffic studies done. The load from those projects, all are going to increase. Many of them are showing a substantial increase where you're going to have to retread the roads. I do think with the architecture done here, the recognition that particularly during school hours, morning hours most particular, is that the fact that traffic on the street makes it impassable. So what I think is a thoughtful design, it created more room within the school grounds envelope to push and drive that traffic onto the property and off of the main roads, which should help alleviate some of the morning and afternoon traffic you get during the addition to the fiscal hours. So it's not a perfect solution. You have a very small entry point with multiple roads coming in connection to get kids into the facility. You can't change that. So what they've tried to do is to create an augmented footprint within the envelope to get everyone into the property and off of the streets. It's probably the best design we can do.
David, it's the idea of
So you'll have that flexibility, but you're also increasing the parking in front where a large field is today. You're reducing some of that field, you're increasing parking, which allows for greater traffic flow and parking even the envelope and off the streets.
Anyone who drives by in the morning knows that as parents arrive outside of Boston Post Road, it's amazing what has to be done to get into the site. And so having a lot more space to keep cars on the site.
You're also jockeying between two different schools, right? So you've got traffic guards that are allowing traffic to come to Clark and from the Wilkins. So now you're consolidating that. Yes, you're bringing more students to one facility, but it's one location. It's not bifurcated with 100 yards of each other. And that bifurcation of 100 yards creates more cognitive process. It slows things down. You won't have to have that traffic officer at the intersection or school street. You won't have to have that blockage there, so you'll have a little more traffic flow to take you from the stop sign of Olds on through.
And I get stuck waiting for traffic from either other school, because of those two crossing bars. So, say, one crossing bar, stop the traffic. Idea is to move that one. And it go a lot faster. It does make a difference.
Other questions? Well, this is the first of our public forums. We have several others scheduled that are listed here. They're also included on our website, which is jfac.sa39.org, which has a trove of information about this project and the entire timeline. And you can also text JFAC to 888-777 to be on the email list to get updates about the project as well. So,
Thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to come tonight. Again, this is the first of what will be many, so I hope that you'll continue coming, email us, follow along. If you're interested in a tour of the building, this building tonight, our administrators are on hand and ready to provide tours. That's it, at 7:30. I'd like to adjourn this session and thank you again so much for your time and all of your thoughtful questions, which Ms. Kuzmo is taking note of so that we can make certain as we move forward and evolve with the project.